Well, the government of Somalia has also responded to Trump's new travel ban. President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo is calling for dialogue with his American counterpart.
Of course, we have to communicate with the U.S. government because, as everybody knows, that we have a large community. There is a large Somali community in the United States who, I'm sure, have contributed to the U.S. economy and the U.S. society in different ways. And we have to talk about what the Somali people have contributed rather than only few people who probably may cause a problem. And that's why we have to address the security situation here. And this is the root cause. The root cause is how to defeat Al-Shabaab here.
And we can discuss this further now with CGTN's Daniel Ranches in Washington and Abdulaziz Bello, who's joining me from Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Daniel, to you first, though. The previous travel restrictions order was met with uproar and protests across the United States. What is the dominant reaction to this latest order from the Trump administration?
Yeah, in the first instance, what happened when Donald Trump made this surprise announcement and signed this executive order was a massive wave of resentment and protest across the United States as people were trapped in airports. You are not seeing the same kind of reaction this time because many of the components of this travel ban have been watered down. However, they do still affect people in many ways. And so what you're now seeing is individual communities or the representatives of those communities speaking out and starting to advocate on behalf of what they see is still a very flawed policy and one that will provide trouble for many in their communities. For example, Representative Keith Ellison, who represents many Somalis in the biggest area where Somalis are currently living, Minnesota, said that this was inhumane and it's cruel and it's wrong to block Somalis who want to come to the United States, especially during a period of humanitarian crisis. On top of that, you are having people from the scientific and educational communities pointing out that there does not seem to be exceptions for people to come here and study and provide professorial, advice and study, all of those kind of things. So there are many cases where individual cases are being made. However, it's worth pointing out that this new executive order does give huge discretion to diplomatic officers in the various embassies and even border control agents to provide exceptions for individuals when they plead their case, for example, in the case of a health emergency or when there is a substantial business reason. So I think it's up to individuals now to look at their cases and see if they can find some discretion in order to come to the United States during this 90-day period.
Well, and Abdulaziz, though, we have been hearing reactions from several African countries, and we have also heard from President Mohamed Abdullahi of Somalia on the U.S. travel ban on Somali nationals. How are ordinary Somalis, though, responding to this news?
Well, Beatrice, the locals here on the streets of Mogadishu have condemned the new executive order by the U.S. President Donald Trump, and they see it as a much bigger picture just from the initial travel ban that targeted 7 predominant Muslim countries. Well, in this new travel ban, it's 6 countries and Somalia is still included. So many here are of the opinion that if this new travel ban, the second version, survives the test of time, because the other one didn't survive the test of time, this will give Donald Trump an excuse to add more predominant Muslim countries to his bucket of a list of countries that he sees as a potential threat to the United States. So different opinions here in Somalia, and one factor that many here didn't expect to wake up in the morning is the announcement by the U.S. that Somalis will not be able to travel to the U.S. for more than 120 days, considering the humanitarian situation here on the ground. It's not the news they expected when they woke up today in the morning. And many are of the opinion that the refugee resettlement program must not be interrupted because it will cut off families from rejoining their family members. Let's take a look at some of the reaction on the streets of Mogadishu.
In Somalia, there's a drought that affects more than half of the country. It makes me feel sad because that visa is prohibited from Somalia. I would ask President Trump to lift the ban.
I would like our government to speak about the Somali people who are suffering in the USA, and I would like President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo to speak directly to the US President Donald Trump to lift the ban. Also, the Somali youth should unite to help those who are affected by the drought.
It is painful as a country which is suffering a lot to get a visa ban. This makes us suffer a lot. I advise the President of the United States of America to respect the human rights, and our government should talk to the US ambassador about these issues.
The views of Somalis there. So, Daniel, to you now in Washington, though, and going back to the previous executive order that was challenged in court, are there any indications this time around that this latest order could be challenged in court, just like the earlier one?
Here it is, the first lawsuit that's been filed. It's an amended complaint by a group of Arab Americans in the District of Michigan. They name several individuals who they believe have been harmed by this new executive order, but they don't go into detail yet about what they believe the complaint is. They're looking at the executive order to assess the legalities of it, but they've definitely already filed that in court. On top of that, the American Civil Liberties Union, which is a very powerful voice of advocacy for civil liberties here in the United States, has already said that it plans to take legal action on the basis that Donald Trump made campaign pledges and made a campaign platform on the idea of a Muslim ban. This executive order does not mention that, but the 6 remaining countries are all Muslim majority countries. So I think they will be making a broader case that this executive order that's been amended is fundamentally unconstitutional, and that could wade its way all the way to the Supreme Court as a major issue. I think we'll see multiple lawsuits filed, but many legal experts say it will be much more difficult to persuade judges to accept their arguments because of the fact that Donald Trump's White House legal team has addressed many of the specific legal complaints in the new executive order.
All right, Daniel Ranches, we'll leave it there for the moment. Daniel Ranches joining us there from Washington, and Abdulaziz Bello for us in Mogadishu. To you both, thank you.